thoughts on leaving the war in Afghanistan?
So when I left Afghanistan in 2014, I thought I was one of the last troops turning the lights out. It's 5 years later, and you can now be old enough to enlist and not have even been born on 9/11. We've got to be ready to put an end to endless war. Now, what I think is actually happening in Afghanistan is we're leaving. Because it's the one thing the Taliban, the Afghan government, the international community, and the US can agree on is that we gotta go. The question is, are we gonna leave well or are we gonna leave poorly? And it does make me nervous that as we're entering into negotiations with the Taliban, the Afghan government's being left off to the side. They have to be included or this isn't gonna work. But at the end of the day, we cannot be the guarantors of economic and political security and prosperity in Afghanistan. Our only equity there, our only one that's worth American blood, is to make sure that American lives are not endangered by something that happens. And that's something that can be achieved by the kind of special operations and intelligence presence that we have anywhere we need it. Not an open-ended commitment. By the way, not just in Afghanistan, we got troops in East Africa right now, based on an authorization for military force that Congress passed in 2002 to deal with 9/11. And the other day I saw the Secretary of State suggesting that we might be getting troops involved to deal with Venezuela. I'm sympathetic to the problems in Venezuela, but this is not the sort of thing that justifies unilateral use of US military forces. And maybe it takes a veteran to say so, coming from the Democrats. But I'm definitely going to be out there saying so.
I have a question. So let's say you're a candidate, we're going into the election, we get into debates. How, because this is my fear of when, just coming off of our Senate race and how that went in the debates. When you go face to face on air and facts don't matter and truth doesn't matter and people are pushed against each other and it's about everything except what you're actually talking about, how do you stay on track and how do you push through who we're going to be facing?
So the metaphor I want to use for this is kind of a stiff arm. That he's going to be doing what he's going to be doing. He's going to be waving his arm. He's going to be saying crazy stuff. The purpose of which is to suck us into this fight. But if we try to mount an equal and opposite force to that, I think it's going to be self-defeating because I think it's playing his game. So when he lies, we got to call it a lie and say what the truth is. When he does something wrong, we got to challenge it. But this election cannot be about him. It's one of the reasons I often talk about the year 2054 and what America's going to look like in 2054. It's a symbolically important number to me because that's the year that I will, God willing, reach the age of the president that he is right now. And when I talk about the future in that way, I'm challenging our party to come up with a message in 2020 that will ring just as true in 2054. Partly as a challenge to us to come up with things that have a longer view, but partly as a reminder that a good message can be one that revolves around your opponent. The more we're talking about him, the less we're talking about you. And that bit us in 2016. We were perceived, I think we were so horrified by who their nominee was, that we had trouble talking about anything else. And now all of America is having trouble thinking or talking about anything else. It's hard, when you see something grotesque, it's hard to look away. And yet, this president has the gift of being able to take any attention that comes his way, even if it's in the form of criticism, and just kind of devouring it and growing bigger off of it. So I know smart, well-spoken Democrats like to imagine, what we would say if we were on the debate stage, but like, what's the zinger that's really going to knock him flat, right? But in a way, we've got to just kind of talk past that whole phenomenon, remind everybody that this president, this presidency is going to come and go, and that we got to be picking up the pieces afterwards. Talking about the fact that we're the ones trying to get you a raise, and they're the ones trying to stop it. We're the ones trying to maintain your health care, and they're the ones trying to withdraw it. That we actually have most Americans with us on most issues, which is exactly why they benefit when we're not talking about the issues because we're busy talking about him. And I'm sure by dinner time he'll insult somebody else and offend the memory of a war hero or whatever. He'll get us talking about that instead of talking about that, what we care about again. The last thing I'll mention though is that there's a strong pattern in American politics that the American people tend to go for something that's very different than whatever they just had. It's how you get Reagan after Carter. It's how you get Obama after Bush. It's how you get Trump after Obama. And I would argue that there's nothing more different from the current president than a laid-back Episcopalian millennial gay war veteran. Okay, one more I'm told, and then we got to wrap. Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, Buck Mulligan again. Tell me, the Republicans basically took away the federal budget deficit and the trade deficit argument.
Right.
And they started really with Reagan, as you pointed out, we're still in the Reagan era. But they didn't actually do anything. And is there any way to get any mileage out of that for you?
Yeah, so we heard a lot about deficits, right?
Yeah.
And then it turned out when they took power, the Republicans, not Republican voters, but Republican senators, don't care.
Yeah.
They don't care. And so they ran up the biggest deficit we've ever seen.
Right.
Not because we had to, not because there was a war on, although there's this endless war going on, but because they felt like it.
Right.
And at a certain point, the reality does kick in. That generationally, we're going to be paying the bill for this. This is going to come due in our lifetime. And these things don't pay for themselves. We know because we tried it for 40 years, and they have. Some deficit spending pays for itself. Investment in infrastructure, investment in education, investment in security and health, that pays for itself. But slashing the top tax rates does not. At least it hasn't each time we've tried it since 1980. So it's not fashionable on my side of the aisle to talk of things like deficits and fiscal responsibility, but if we don't, nobody else will. And part of what I enjoy as far as the standing of the mayor is to describe the cases in which, because printing money was not an option, we had to make tough choices in order to make sure that the government ran cost effective, in order to do it without raising taxes, which we figured out how to do. So I think there's a golden moment for us to talk about that. And to talk about what is any of this for? We don't set taxes in the abstract. We set an agenda for what the American people expect their government to deliver for them. And then we raise the revenue to deliver it. At least that's how it's supposed to work. We couldn't be further from that now. But that's exactly why we got to establish that. And I think at a moment when all of the ideologies of all of the parties are so scrambled, almost beyond recognition, at this watershed moment that is, I think, the end of the Reagan era, that's been my entire lifetime, and the beginning of the next one, which could be any number of directions, that we have a responsibility to take a longer view, and that when we do, people will respond. Well, I guess our time's just about up again. I can't thank you enough for being part of this. Look forward to seeing you on the trail, and I hope we'll be able to keep in touch. Thanks.